Hi everyone, welcome back to another video, and Merry Christmas to all. Today is December the 25th, and again I wanted to wish you guys all Merry Christmas, to you, your family, your loved ones, your friends. I hope that you're spending a great time together, and again remembering the fact that in this day we're celebrating the birth of a very important person, a person that was born more than 2,000 years ago, and that person is Jesus of Nazareth, the most important and the most influential person in entire human history. No person has ever had the impact on culture, on education, on science as Jesus did. And our Western society, our Western culture, many things that we consider, we take for granted, are actually rooted and grounded on the truth of Christianity and of Christian teachings and principles and ethics and morality. And again, this is wonderful. But there are many people that when this time of the year comes, they try to discredit Christianity. They try to say, well, you see, Christmas actually is pagan. It's a pagan holiday. And then Christmas just use it to put Jesus in there to try to convince other people to become Christians, but it's not actually a Christian celebration. And again, I wanted to do this video with the camera on because unfortunately I got the webcam on my computer just broke. So I just couldn't record from it. But I have the computer here and I wanted to read down some of the very common claims that skeptics or atheists do against Christmas. And again, I just wanted to show you that this is actually false. That many claims that trying to present Christmas as if it's a pagan holiday or has pagan origins is actually false or is not really supported by evidence. There is very little evidence that we might believe these claims to be true. And again, for example, there is a very common claim that the date of Christmas, so December 25th, is borrowed from pagan festivals like Sol Invictus and or Saturnalia. These that were Roman festivities. This is a very common thing. Now, again, what do we know about history and about these two festivities? About Sol Invictus, we know that Sol Invictus was not placed on December the 25th until 354 AD, when the Philocalian calendar records this, but doesn't specify any festival with regards to sun worship. So prior to this, the Julio-Claudian Fasti inscriptions say some festivals were on August the 8th, the 9th, 28th, and December the 11th, and maybe October 19th. So the Philocalian calendar says Emperor Aurelian honored the sun with chariot races every 4 years from October 19 to October 22. So from the sources that we have available, we see that early on, so we have no records or no evidence ever that Sol Invictus was held on December 25th, but only afterwards. So only after Christianity had already spread and was already becoming more popular, that's when it was moved, in a sense, to December 25th. But already Christians were celebrating this day, were using this day to celebrate Jesus' birth from centuries. So again, it's very likely that it was the other way around. So it wasn't that Christians took from the pagan origins, but actually Sol Invictus was moved to December 25th to try to compete against Christmas, so against the holiday that Christians were having. Now, what about Saturnalia? Well, Saturnalia was never actually on December 25th. Macrobius says Saturnalia began 14 days before January, which comes out to be December the 17th, using Roman calendric dates. He says that it lasted for 3 days, but according to the Fasti inscriptions, it lasted to the 24th, during the days of the Republic. So as again, there are many common, in this time of the year, it was very common that there were some maybe festivities going on, but none of them, as we see, were actually celebrated specifically on this day, on December 25th. It was actually the contrary. Christians started celebrating on December 25th, and then we see centuries later that many pagan or other rituals started using also December 25th as a day to celebrate. So it was actually Christians and Christmas that was influencing the pagan holidays and not the other way around. Now another one, he says here, winter solstice. So the winter solstice had no festive significance to ancient Romans. There were no celebrations planned for the date, and it is agreed on when it actually was. So the Julian calendar does say December the 25th, but Pliny the Elder says December the 26th, and Columella says December the 23rd. So again, we have different dates that this supposed day was held on, but again, it had no festival, like it had no religious or like celebration weight in a sense. So it had no real significance. So that was that's a very, very common thing that he said about Christmas. Now, another thing that I wanted to write with you is that why did Christians actually use December 25th? So it's very likely that Jesus was not born on December 25th, but every single Christian knows this. It's just a symbolic date. But have you ever wondered, or do you know why exactly December the 25th? And this actually comes from, it wasn't, again, just a date used because it was already a pagan festival or something pagan used in that day. So Christians just borrowed and used that. But it was actually coming from two different Roman early Christians, early church fathers in a sense. I don't know if they were Jewish church fathers, but they are considered like early Christians. And they actually did a math. So look here, this is very, very interesting. And he says here, Sextus Julius Africanus is the first guy that we find. And he says here, the origin of December 25th as a date for Christmas finds its beginnings in the late 2nd and early 3rd century. So again, here we're talking about around, like we're talking 2nd century, it's like 180, 190 to the 200s, early 200s, right? So we're talking here 100 years, more than 100 years before Constantine made Christianity the religion of the empire, in a sense. So this was the time where Christianity was still spreading in popularity, but it was still persecuted. It wasn't really seen as good, And he says here, with historian Sextus Julius Africanus. Africanus wrote a volume titled Chronographial, an early Christian treatise that attempted to chronologically cover world history from creation up to his own day. And he says here, based on calculations from his readings of Luke and Matthew's Gospels, Africanus concluded that Jesus was conceived on March the 25th. From the birth then, he counted 9 months ahead, which landed him on the date of December the 25th. So you can see why. So again, remember, the people in the ancient history, they weren't dumb. They weren't non-intelligent. No, they were highly intelligent. And so they knew that the time that a woman takes from conception until she gives birth is around 9 months. It's not exactly always 9 months, but it's around 9 months, right? And therefore, they concluded, okay, based on my calculations of Luke descriptions of what happened during that time when Jesus was conceived, when the angel comes to talk to Mary, what was going on from Luke, from Matthew, he concluded that the possible date that Jesus was conceived was on March the 25th. And so from then, he just adds 9 months, consider the standard time of pregnancy, and that's when they arrive to December 25th. So that's actually the origin of why Christians use this date of December 25th. There's also here another guy who is Hippolytus of Rome. He says here, Hippolytus of Rome wrote a commentary on the book of Daniel in the early 3rd century. In it, he states that Jesus, again, something very similar to what Sextus Julius Africanus said, was born 8 days before the Calendids of January, which would have been December 24th or 25th. So again, we have a different source, someone doing some other kind of math, again, arriving to a very similar conclusion. And there was another one with Tertullian, who said here, there was an idea within early Christianity that if you were really holy, you would die on the day you were conceived or born. This was calculated mainly because the Old Testament would record the life of individuals, like Moses, and present round numbers without adding months or days. The most holy man who ever lived was Jesus. Therefore, many within the early church thought he must have died on his birthday. So the ancient Christian writer Tertullian, in Adversus Judaeus, stated that Christ suffered in the month of March, at the time of Passover, on the 8th day before the calends of April. That day would have been March the 25th, as I said before. If that was also the day of the incarnation, it explains why the early church set the date for Christmas 9 months later on December 25th. So again, we have another source, very much like Julius Africanus, calculating the fact that based on the day that Jesus died, was March 25th. Therefore, very likely it was also the day in which he was conceived, and therefore adding 9 months, we get again to this day. You can see that there are different sources. I'm not saying that any of this is necessarily true, when it's exactly how we know that Jesus was born, because it's very likely instead that maybe Jesus was born in another date. We don't have in the Bible a clear date on where Jesus was born. But again, I'm just trying to show you that from early history, from early Christianity, Christians were trying to consider different dates in which Jesus could have been born. And you can see here, that's why we got to December 25th. There are different sources, but again, I'm just trying to show you that this is not something taken from pagan holidays or pagan festivals or celebrations. So it's actually something that Christians themselves did, and that they used, all right? And again, there is also Augustine that comes later on, though, in the 4th century, and attests to the ongoing tradition of Jesus' birth being on December 25th. So you can see that coming from these early historians and early Christians, they kind of were talking about this day as the day of the birth of Jesus, December 25th. And very likely, this date was then kind of used by all the different churches until it became widespread. And so all the Christians in a way, started using this date to celebrate Jesus' birth. Even though, again, it's likely that it wasn't exactly in that day, but again, it's again a symbolic, a representation. And so again, we have then Augustine coming in the 4th century, right? That then writes extensively that yes, the Christians were already celebrating on December 25th the birth of Jesus. So he wrote, and this is a quote: "For Jesus is believed to have been conceived on the 25th of March, upon which day also he suffered. So the womb of the Virgin in which he was conceived, where no one mortal was begotten, corresponds to the new grave in which he was buried, wherein was never man laid, neither before him nor since." So again, this is the what Augustine wrote about the fact that March 25th, Jesus died there. Therefore, very likely is when he was conceived. 9 months, December 25th. So that's what we got there. And again, that's why Christians use the 25th of December as a day in which to celebrate. Very likely, again, it's not true, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a symbolic day that we have. And I just wanted to share with you that the sources that we have is within early Christianity, and this is not borrowing any pagan festivities or any pagan holidays. It's actually something entirely that belongs to early Christianity and to the early Christian tradition that, again, has nothing to do with paganism. So, again, I hope that this was helpful to you, that it was something to think about. And again, if you don't believe me, right, just fact check. So research yourself, go on the internet and look for all the things I've talked about. So historicity, early Christian tradition on Christmas. So why was Jesus' birth celebrated on the 25th? And just take a look at all the different websites, what different websites tell you about. And again, try to be as objective as you can in your research, and you're gonna find the truth. We're gonna find all these things I've talked to you about. And again, they just attest to this very early Christian tradition, and that doesn't have any pagan roots. So again, remember, just correlation doesn't mean causation. So yeah, it's very likely that there were other pagan festivities around the time that maybe were held, but again, just because they were also held during the time doesn't mean that Christianity borrowed from them, and that these pagan holidays actually caused Christians to use this date. There is no evidence for that. And again, it would be a fault of correlation. Just because something happened in some time doesn't mean it's a fault of causation. Just because something is correlated doesn't mean that it's causative. That it's just one preceding and causing the other. And that's it. So there are many more things about Christmas, about history that has been done, that I really recommend you to read about and to research, because it's wonderful how much God has preserved and how much God has allowed us that if we really want to know, if we really want to research deep, we can have corroboration about what we believe, and we can actually come up with some really good ways to understand what we believe and why we believe so. So again, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. God bless you. And again, Merry Christmas. See ya. Bye-bye.